So there was a video that went viral recently about an account executive at Cloudflare that went viral because she got laid off and she ended up filming her layoff. So this video was brought to my attention by one of my listeners who reached out to me and said, "Hey, you should check this video out." So I appreciate you taking the time to send me over this video. And as I'm watching this video, I'm getting the icky feeling that this feels very familiar. And this kind of summarizes people's experiences with layoffs, and in particular, companies who can't seem to handle them in a proper fashion. So if you haven't seen it, essentially this account executive, who's a relative new hire, has only been at the company for a few months, ends up getting called into an unexpected meeting. However, her colleagues have also been getting called into these similar meetings, so she had an idea of what to expect, and then she ended up hitting the record button so that we could follow along. So let's work through what they say. Warning, this is probably going to trigger some of you, especially with your feelings or thoughts toward the human resource profession in general, and can't say that they're unwarranted after watching this one. So let's take a quick look at what exactly was said in the meeting and kind of break down play by play. So if you're on TikTok, you might want to check out the account directly. Her name is Brittany Peach, and that's Brittany with an A and then Peach with 3 H's at the end. So at Brittany Peach on TikTok. So the point of view is you're about to get laid off. So she's kind of caught wind of this, and essentially what has happened here is she has her coworkers have been getting random 15-minute calendar invites all day, so her entire team is getting called into these strange meetings. And I think if you've ever been laid off, you probably are very familiar with the random calendar invite showing up on your desk. You're not sure what it means, and if it's unexpected and it's out of the ordinary, of course, I think we've all probably learned to expect the worst. In her case, this is what's going on. So she knows that this is happening, hits the record button, and here's what ensues. So you can hear them dialing in now. Somebody randomly shows up.
Hi.
Yes, I'm so sorry. My name's Rosie. I'm just joining the call. Nice to meet you. I'm on the HR team.
Anytime you show up to a call and HR is sitting on the call and you've never, especially if you've never interacted with them and you're not expecting them to be there, you can pretty much expect that your position is being terminated. I don't think I've ever been on a call with an HR person where that wasn't the case. She says she had learned just before that she had about 10 minutes to compose herself before it was her turn, because her colleague right before her had just had experienced this similar call. So they're literally just going from person to person. It's like a kind of ruthless in that regard. The one thing that I will say, though, that is positive, if you could call it that, is at least they're doing these face to face and not you find out that you're laid off through a mass email or through a Slack message to an entire group, or you try to log into your account, or go to the building and swipe your badge and you can't get in. So now there's second person has logged in, and you can hear his voice in the background. It says, I got let go by 2 people I don't know, a woman from HR and a director man I've never even heard of before. So it's 2 random people who show up to this meeting.
Thanks for meeting with me and Rosie. We have an important meeting today. We finished our evaluations of 2023 performance. This is where you have not met Cloudflare expectations for performance.
She says, I wanted to stand up for myself because what did I have to lose? And you're right, you don't really have anything to lose in this case. They're going to present you with a severance agreement, and they're going to want you to try to sign it, because basically when you sign the severance agreement, you're releasing them from liability. So if you had a case, maybe it was an age discrimination or you're unfairly treated, then you signing it away basically resolves them of liability. So they essentially dangle a it's like they're incentivizing you to do it, but they're getting you to sign your rights away, so that it's really kind of, it's shady and it's unfair. But that's how all these companies they never do it out of the kindness of their heart. Just know that there's always an ulterior motive for anything that you sign. So when you get a severance agreement, you want to read through it really carefully and never sign the severance agreement on the spot, because if there is something shady going on and the company is targeting you unfairly in that event, you may want to consult with an attorney first before you sign it. Just make sure that you read through it, never accept it on the spot. And if they give you any pressure to accept it on the spot, they're full of it. They will always give you time to at least consider it, and you should always go and lawyer up if you feel like you're targeted unfairly.
This is where you have not met Cloudflare expectations for performance. We've decided to part ways with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop you right there.
So if you heard what he said, you have not met Cloudflare performance standards and they've decided to part ways. So basically what they're saying is we're letting you go because your performance is substandard. And so she is obviously putting her foot down on that.
Sure.
So I started August 25th. I've been on a 3-month ramp, and then it was 3 weeks of December, and then a week of Christmas, and then here we are. I have had the highest activity amongst my team. Since I've started, I have had 3 contracts out, done a really great job managing my deals up until the very end that decided not to close last minute. So I don't think that makes a lot of sense for me in my Cloudflare journey here so far. Also, every single one-on-one I've had with my manager, every conversation I've had with him, he has been giving me nothing but I am doing a great job, I have had great activity, I have really great meetings, I'm picking up the products very quickly, and things have been going really, really well. I make really great relationships with my clients. So I disagree that my performance hasn't been, I haven't met performance expectations, when I certainly have, just because I haven't closed anything officially.
Okay, so there's a little bit to unpack here. So she's essentially straight off of a 3-month ramp. So she just got off of her onboarding and now she's working full time. She's had basically 1 month. So she exited her ramp at right around Thanksgiving, and then she had a week, basically a week off. Nobody's working the week of Thanksgiving. And then she had a couple of weeks of productivity after ramp, so probably the first 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks of December. And then Christmas came around, and so everybody was off again, and nobody's working, nobody's being productive at that point in time. And so basically what the company is saying is that they're holding her performance standard to those 2 weeks, is essentially what she's arguing, those 2 weeks that she is in post-ramp, like production level work. And they're saying, well, our numbers say that you're not performing to standard. And she's calling them rightfully on the BS. Essentially, they're gaslighting her into saying that her performance is the issue when she's like literally a brand new employee. The second thing I want to point out here is that your manager is probably not aware of the fact that you're being laid off or that you're even on a layoff list, because oftentimes they might be asked to provide performance feedback to the team above them. So the boss's boss, the people who are making these decisions, like this HR team, they've got these spreadsheets. They meet behind closed doors and even your boss isn't involved in. Then they look at basically like a spreadsheet, a matrix, and they look at data points and very specific finite things. And then they look at what their plan is for the future of their business. And most of their decisions are made based on where you fall in a spreadsheet, and it's very impersonal. It's very calculated, and it is very there's a coldness to it, and that's why, because as humans we are relationship natured. We want to interact with people. Our jobs are about relationships. You get hired based on an interview, ironically, a lot of times with these HR people. But your job is so relationship oriented, because that's just the nature of work, that the layoff can be a very jarring experience because it's so cold and so calculated. And it's like 1 minute you're being told that you're doing a great job and that the team's here, we're all family, all those kind of like those icky cliche things that we talk about on this channel, and you know full well how I feel about. But then on the same token, they'll lay you off without any notice, without any warning, and then they'll use some Mickey Mouse example of why they're just trying to justify it like they are doing here. So good on her for calling this out. Whether it'll do any good or not is probably, it's really not going to do any good, but it might make you feel better, at least at the time.
I hear you.
Also, why are you doing this and not my manager? Not, we've never met, so this seems a little odd that my manager has no idea that this has been happening and the director has no idea that this has been happening. So I'm just definitely confused, and I would love like an explanation that makes sense.
100%.
Yeah, like watch them squirm and squiggle these questions that she's asking, which are very pointed.
Real quick, let me carve out the two threads, a ladder of why I'm on this conversation. I'll put that one the second half, and Rosie might be better to explain the process of who's giving this information in the prior piece, which is your
Like why he can't answer why he's sitting in the room is like, it's very head scratching.
feedback and notes about your performance. So let me add a little color context to that. So just for clarification, you are not being singled out in this. Your peers are also being collectively assessed on performance. This is a collective calibration for Cloudflare.
So if she's not being singled out, then why would they use the excuse of your performance metrics are not meeting standard? That's literally singling somebody out. If they're saying the entire department is not meeting standard, then it just seems like it's a cop-out excuse. I don't know why they just wouldn't say that the business has changed. They are moving in a different direction with their strategic vision, and unfortunately this position has been targeted as one that we will no longer be needing going forward. At least be like honest about it.
So I just want to clarify that piece. I won't be able to add any kind of specifics on numbers or.
Wait, yeah, no, can you explain for me why Brittany Peach is getting let go?
I won't be able to go into specifics for numbers.
Wait, why though? I just started. I've been working extremely hard. Just because I haven't closed anything that has nothing to do with my performance on a 3-month ramp with just 1 month with 2 major holidays in the middle, I don't think that has anything to do with why I should be let go, if that makes sense. So I really need an answer and an explanation as to why Brittany Peach is getting let go, not why Cloudflare decided to hire too many people and are now actually realizing that they can't afford this many people and they're letting that go. If that's the real answer, I would rather just you tell me that instead of making up some bullshit and telling me that right before I lose my job from someone that I've never met before. If you can respect that.
So she brings up an absolutely valid point. And the reason why they are using performance as an issue or as a reason why they're terminating is very questionable, because essentially they could disposition her in their ATO, in their hiring systems as fired for cause. Because if you're fired for we're not fired for cause, that's probably not the right term, but fired for performance. And if you're checking backgrounds and you go back and check a reference and they ask, maybe the question of, are you eligible for rehire? And there's a note on there saying that she was terminated because of performance metrics. They may not disclose that specific piece to a new employer, but dispositioning it as somebody that wasn't meeting performance metrics, they may flag her as somebody that's not eligible for rehire in the future. And I just don't know why they would say that. It doesn't seem like it's the case. She's a new hire, newly ramped, literally just came into production for only 2 productive weeks, sandwiched in between a couple of holidays, and these people don't seem to know anything.
Yeah, I can totally respect that, and I don't think Dom or myself today is going to give you any clarity or answers that's going to meet the expectations that you're communicating to us, Brittany. So I can't speak to.
So am I getting let go for no reason? If you guys can't give me a reason.
Yes, you are.
I'm happy to follow up with you separately to give you the data that was calibrated. I'll need to speak with revenue leadership specifically to see if we can get that for you. But Dom and
Can
I
you
do
share
not
that
have
with me
that
now?
in our meeting. I cannot share that with you right now, unfortunately.
Because they don't have it. That's the reason they can't share it with you. The HR lady speaking, I'm sorry, she just sounds like every HR person who's ever in these types of meetings. It's like giving me like post-traumatic stress. No offense to, I have a lot of really great HR people in my network, and this is not directed at any of the good ones, but this lady just has HREs kind of written all over her responses, and this like the responses are very targeted and calculated and very non-committal to anything, because she is trying to walk a tightrope of the less she says, the better off she is. The HR person. It's like they want you to be very specific whenever they're coaching your performance and trying to get documentation. You'll see them being real specific with their language then, but then when it comes to terminations or anything that could put them into legal situations, you're going to see them walking a tightrope, and suddenly they can't say a single thing. So very interesting dichotomy there when you pay attention to the HR folks, and then the language that she's using, it's giving me the willies.
Yeah. It's understandable how you feel and your frustration. cannot stress that enough.
I have been working extremely hard. I just knew that this meeting was coming after knowing what's been happening with my peers and how extremely frustrated and upset everyone is. I know you guys must not be able to understand that given in the positions that you are in, and it must be very easy for you to just have these little 10-minute, 15-minute meetings, tell someone that they're fired, completely wreck their whole life, and then that's it with no explanation. That's extremely traumatizing for people.
Yeah, it is.
If you can imagine that. And I don't think that this is, it's just very, very shocking. Very, very shocking. I've like really given my whole energy and life over the last 4 months to this job, and to be let go for no reason is like a huge slap in the face.
Honestly, that's why I could never do a traditional HR job. Again, I never had to lay anybody off in my career, so I feel very fortunate about that. But when I was doing HR work, it was more employee relations, but it was never had to participate in a layoff, never had to deliver news like this. So I'm very fortunate, but I just do not think I could ever be in a position where I'm delivering these kinds of messages in such a calculated, cold, like you have to have a certain this sounds like me piling on, but you have to be a certain kind of person to want to do that. There's almost like an empathy switch that is switched off to be able to sit in these meetings one after another, telling them like you're, to her point, you're wrecking your life, wrecking your life. And there's not really a consequence. Like you kind of just go home and go, well, how was your day, honey? Well, it was great. I terminated 20 people today and I got another 20 to do tomorrow. I personally couldn't do that. But I think we've all probably felt what she's feeling. Every one of us who has been in these meetings, this one's probably hitting home. And I think she's perfectly valid in her feelings. But at the end of the day, there's not really much you can do about it in the situation. Once the decision's made, the decision's made.
From a company that I really wanted to believe in.
I'm sorry to keep on stopping, but I just think she's bringing up a lot of interesting points, and things that I bring up on this channel quite frequently is this is why we always have to act like the free agent. We always have to act like the CEO of our career, and you should never go into a job. It's not to say you should expect to be laid off, because that's not the right mentality either, but we should always be taking steps to protect ourselves and read the tea leaves. Look around the organization, look around your peer groups. If every other tech company is laying off, I mean, you ought to put together some contingency plans in the event that yours is probably going to be doing the same thing at some point in time. I mean, I think just about every tech company has laid off in 2022, 2023, and now heading into 2024. So take the blinders off. Let's be proactive here and always be prepared with a contingency.
Can absolutely understand how you feel that way, why you feel that way. And I'll be honest with you, there's nothing that we're going to say in this call and the time that we have that's going to undo the way that you feel right in this moment. And I personally will do everything that I can to give you as much specific information as I can after this call. I can't make any promises. I understand where you're coming from. I can tell you that Dom and I do care. I understand the feeling that you have right now, and I can't change that. So
No, they don't. They don't even know who she is.
But you guys have still not given me a reason why I'm being let go.
Again, this would be so much cleaner if they just said we just determined that your position is not part of our strategic plan going forward, and then that'd be it, period. It would be cleaner that way. They're digging themselves more of a hole than anything.
Despite constant positive praise from my manager, great meetings that I'm having, the amount of activity that I have has all been positive. I have not received any negative inclination. I have not been put on a performance improvement plan, nothing. So.
And I cannot speak to what your manager has communicated to you directly.
But that should be the indication of
for performance based on your attainment and leading indicators of data. That is the rationale.
But I've been here for only a month after ramping, and that was during a holiday. So I don't understand can you explain what those performance metrics are? Or is that just like a vague term to give to everyone that you're speaking to today?
I'll say that the performance indicators and performance metrics are while we're not able to go into specifics, and we won't. There's no situation where we will be able to go into.
Do you
Why?
guys
'Cause
even know? Do you guys even know, like, why, like, who
They
you're
don't.
talking to each day? Like,
They are talking
every
out
single
of their ass so
10,
badly.
15 minutes. Do you guys even know who you're talking to? Like, why you're letting these people go
They have a list
when
in
you don't
front of
even
them.
understand?
It's like the
kind of
Bobs
work
from
and
Office Space.
everything that they've put in.
I hear you and what you're saying.
It just doesn't make it. It just doesn't make any sense that you guys have still not been able to give me a reason why I'm being let go.
Just from a process perspective, your questions are valid. This is
They have no answers because if they do have performance metrics, I mean, clearly they're referencing some performance metrics, but they're not sharing with her. They do have them in front of them. If that's the reason, I think it's complete BS that that's the reason. And I don't know why they're choosing to use that as their reason. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
isn't going to be the forum and the situation where we're able to go into the detail that you're looking for.
But then when? If it's not right as I'm getting fired, then it's certainly not going to be after when I'm no longer part of the company.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything we can say in this moment or today, Brittany, that's going to change the way that you feel. And it's understandable. I'm taking notes and feedback, and we'll circle back.
Yeah, I
You're
know.
listening
You
in
definitely
on
messed me
Change
too,
the
but
outcome
that's
of the meeting. It's not going to change the outcome of the situation today, so it may be best if I do get into more of the specifics of what the next steps are, because I think it's clear that you have questions that we cannot give answers to. And if you'd be open to it, I'd love to move into what the next steps are so that you're not any further blindsided than you already feel.
They came into this meeting completely unprepared. And it's very obvious when they're talking through. There was no strategy set here. They probably had some talking points. I don't even know if these two, the two people on the phone, know each other. I don't know what relationship they have with each other. So Brittany has a very good point that it's just this impersonal. It's just such a cold and calculating thing. So that's why, when companies wonder about loyalty and they ask about it in interviews and they assess you based on like your job hopping resume and all this stuff, it's really kind of laughable because she's only been there for 3 months or 4 months. She just answered these questions in an interview. She just convinced them that she was the right fit 3 or 4 months ago. And suddenly they're using some bullcrap excuse about her performance, which was probably absolutely fine. They have no performance metrics to back it up. And if they do, they're piling it on. And for what reason, I just have no idea. So obviously this has gotten a lot of flack. It's gone completely viral. And the CEO has actually stepped in and heard this. Basically what he says is that he listened to the video and he listened to the corresponding backlash, which was significant and severe. He said the mistake was not being as kind and humane as we were. There's no humaneness to a layoff. Let's just clarify that. There's no kindness in a layoff. It's a severing of, and it's usually a very sudden severing of a work relationship where you invest emotionally, and there's just no way to do that in a humane and kind way. But he said in response to the backlash, he said he admitted that he found the viral video to be very painful to watch, but didn't do anything about it. So it's the same result happened. It's just like this, we're going to listen and learn. These companies can do this stuff. They can hire incorrectly. They can overestimate, yet the people who make these decisions to add these headcount are never the ones who are on the layoff list. To me, if you're looking at performance metrics, they should be number one on the list. If you hire a bunch of people only to terminate them 3 months later, the person who planned the headcount should be the one who should be assessed on their performance, and they should be slid a folder across the desk letting them know the terms of their separation because they're clearly incompetent. They don't have the ability to workforce plan, so why are they being allowed to make these decisions? Now, I get that the market changes and there's market conditions change and things can happen like black swan events and all this kind of stuff that you can't predict. But in general, I feel like a lot of these companies have just so poorly planned from the time of the pandemic all the way through the back and forth of the pendulum. And now you get to this point where the CEO comes on because he has to respond. It's not like he's really feeling that bad for these people. He has to respond, comes on and says, well, I agree that it was really bad, because that's all he can say at this point. The damage is already done. It's already gone viral. It's already all over the internet. So it is what it is. So again, the point of reacting to this is to look at your employment situation from a pragmatic lens and really start to take ownership in your career, because you're the only one that is looking out for you in your career. You have to start to take ownership, and you have to start reclaiming your control. And that means by making yourself as valuable as you possibly can to an employer. And it means protecting yourself. Build up those nest eggs. You know, I know that people hate the idea of a side hustle, and they say, well, you shouldn't need to. But, you know, the reality is that companies are laying people off left and right. And if you don't have any other way of paying your bills, you're going to start dipping into your 401ks. You're going to be starting to dip into your savings accounts, and it could really ruin you pretty quickly from a financial perspective if you're not careful. And having alternative income streams, it doesn't mean you have to have a side hustle, but you can have ways of earning income. I mean, there's things you can do, like you can drive your car, and there's ways to make money just by driving and doing mundane tasks. But you can do these things in order to protect yourself so that you have more than one way to pay your bills. And if you're not doing this, you're not taking these steps, you're not truly taking ownership, and you're putting yourself at major risk. So I just encourage you to really look at your current situation and decide whether or not you feel truly safe and what you're doing to put together that contingency. Anyway, this video has gone on long enough, so I just wanted to give my reaction to that video and kind of re-emphasize some of the points that I make consistently on this channel. Head over and give her a little bit of love on her TikTok channel. She could probably use the support, and who knows, maybe that can become a nice little side hustle for her as well. If you're somebody at Cloudflare or one of the other companies that has laid off recently and you need additional support getting back on your feet as quickly as you can, that is something that I specialize in. I have a website called alifeafterlayoff.com, and I encourage you to go and check out. There's a ton of resources on there on how to get back on your feet as quickly as you can after a disruption in your income. So check it out, alifeafterlayoff.com. Anyway, appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you on the next one.